So yesterday got up to Lamed Ches Amud Beis near the top, the two dots. So the Mishnah on Lamed Ches Amud Aleph had a machlokus between the Tanna Kamma and Rabb Shimon ben Gamliel. If Reuven is watching some fruits for Shimon and the fruits start getting ruined, what should you do with them? Should you just leave them alone or should you sell them? And the Gemara is right. So the Tanna Kamma said you should leave them alone and just let them sit, and hopefully they'll come back soon and take them. And Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said you should sell them because it's like returning a lost object to the owner. He's losing money, so you should sell them and take the cash and set it aside for the owner, or at least write down that you owe that money to the owner. And when he comes back, give him that quantity of cash. That's the quote we're starting from. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer. We should sell him in Beis Din. That because he's like returning a lost object to the owner. He's preventing them a loss. They're about to lose money. He's saving them. It's like returning a lost object. So Itmar, it was said in a discussion. Rabbi Abba Rabbi Yaakov, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Abba, son of Rabbi Yaakov, says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Halacha Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. We pass like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Rabba Amar Rav Nachman, and Rabba says that Rav Nachman said, Halacha is like the rabbis, the first opinion. It says you don't sell them. As for Amar Rabbi Yochanan Chadazimna, Rabbi Yochanan already said it. Why does Rabbi Abba Rabbi Yaakov have to tell us that Rabbi Yochanan says halacha is like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel? He said it previously. Amar Rabba bar bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabba bar bar Chana said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Kol mak mishashana Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel b'mishaseinu halacha gamoso. Every single place that the Mishnah quotes Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, the halacha follows opinion. Except for the case of a guarantor, the case of tzidon that's talking about someone has a husband that's a brother-in-law that I think it's a brother-in-law that he doesn't like, that she doesn't like, and the second set of proofs comes in Sanhedrin. So these three Gemaras, then we don't follow like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Any other place that Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel's name appears in a Mishnah, the halacha follows him. So why does Rabbi Yochanan need to say the halacha follows Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel here? It's not one of those three. The halacha is clearly like him. So why does he have to say it? So Gemara says Amarayim who will leave it to Rabbi Yochanan. It's a machlokes Amarayim. What Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel holds. One opinion says we always pass it like Rabbi Shimon, and what Rabbi Yochanan holds. One opinion says except for these three places, we always pass it like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. One says not always, and therefore we need to spell out individually that we pass it like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel in each place. Now the Gemara says, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel nishma mishma from the fact from the statement of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel nishma we can conclude the moridin karov the next day shavoy that you send in a relative if someone has been kidnapped. So the basic case is you have a person who is missing in action. He's not around to take care of his field. We'll see later. It's not through his own choice. He's not able. He's been kidnapped. He cannot take care of his property. So you see from Rabbi Yochanan who says that that you should sell a person's property, give back to him the cash, even though he's losing his own property in the process. You're not going to be able to return his own property. You have to sell and give him cash. And the fact that he does that, you see that if someone is missing, then you can send a relative in to take care of his property for him, to farm it, and that way he's going to get some kind of return on his property instead of just leaving it empty. And it's going to get ruined, and he's not going to produce anything. Rabbanan from the rabbis who say that you should not sell a property, nishma here, the ein moridin karav the next day shavoy. From what they say that you don't sell it. Here also you don't send a relative to property if a person has disappeared. I ask me and what makes you say that? Dilma maybe ad kan lo kamar Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel hacha. Maybe Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel only said in our case of selling the property, ella except or only shim the kal yakarna. So over there, I said it backwards. Maybe only said you sell it here because I said it right. In our case, the property itself is getting ruined. He's not only is he not making profit on it, property itself is getting ruined in our case, and that's why Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says you should sell it. But over there, in the case of the relative, the property itself is not really getting ruined, it's just a lack of profit. Hakanami, maybe you'd say also, the in morin, you would not send a relative down. If Adkan lo ka'amar rabbanan hacha, maybe the rabbis who say here you don't sell it. Maybe they don't say it here. Ella ikar of Kahana, ikar Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak. Maybe it's either like Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak or Rabbi Kahana. They were arguing. In yesterday's Amud, one said that the reason you don't sell is the person would rather have his own property than someone else's. When it comes to putting someone in your field, he's not losing anything by it, so might as well put a relative in. Or the reason is because maybe he's going to make it truma. There's no relevance to putting a relative in the field. We're worried that maybe he made the property truma, therefore he shouldn't sell it. Well, that has nothing to do with the field. The field's sitting empty, so for sure put someone in the field. So maybe these two, the first one to say that they're related, they sound similar, but maybe they have absolutely nothing to do with each other. But over there, Hakanami the marina, maybe we would plan a relative down. That's Lamemer, the trade timing. Are you trying to say that they're independent? They're two different logics. They're not the same logic. Amar Rabb Yehudah Amar Shmuel. Rabb Yehudah said the name of Shmuel. Halacha like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Halacha is like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Amar Shmuel himself said, "Marina that you send a relative down." So Shmuel paskins in both cases. Lavish of the Chad Taimahu, isn't it because of the same reason behind him? That's why Shmuel paskins both halachas that you sell the property and that you send a relative in. It's one reason. And he said, no, it's not true. Trade timing, it's two different logics. It's logical that it must be two. So Amar Rava says, Amar Rav Nachman said, he paskins like the Chachamim that you don't sell the fruits. Amar Rav Nachman, and Rav Nachman said, Morim Kavlu Nechsei Shavoi. Nachman says you sell a relative in. You see that it's possible to hold that you don't sell the fruits, but you do send a relative in. You see that they're not dependent on halachas. From this we hear trade timing inu, that there are two different reasons. They're not the same logic behind them. Shmamina. Now it's considered proven that it is not the same logic. They're completely independent. So what we hold about selling the fruit, we hold about the captives, sending a relative into when someone's captured. They're two different halachas that are independent. However, now that we've mentioned this halacha of captives, we're going to do a proper study, as is normal, the proper study of this halacha of sending a relative into the land of someone who's captured. So it was said, discussed in the base midrash, Shavoi Shanishma, a captive who was captured, and someone who was, again, taken away from his property against his will. Rav says, Ein Marin Kavl Nechazav. Rav says you do not send a relative in his property. We'll see why shortly. Shmuel Amar, Maridim Kavl Nechazav. And Shmuel says you do send a relative into his property. Now the Gemara says, when we heard about him, he's dead. The rumor is that he's dead. No one argues, everyone agrees to Maridim that you send a relative in. Why would that be? Because with the assumption he's dead. Maybe not. It's just a rumor. It's not evidence. We don't have evidence that he's dead. The evidence that he's dead, then there's nothing to talk about. We give the property permanently to the heirs. We don't have evidence that he's dead. There's an assumption that he's dead. We've heard that he's dead, but it may not be accurate. But that's considered for sure. That's considered enough proof that's considered enough of reasoning. At the very least, we let the relative take over the property as a caretaker, and we'll see if he comes back, then he may get the property back and maybe even get some money back. But for sure, if the understanding that he's dead, we will let a relative take over. So where did they argue? We know he's captured, but we don't know that he's dead. We don't have any evidence. We don't even have a rumor that he's dead. Rav Amar Ein Maridin. We don't send the relative in. Maybe the relative is not going to take care of property. He says, I'm watching my uncle's field or my father's field. He comes back, he's just going to take it back from me. Why should I invest in a property? Why, I'm going to strip, I'm going to, I don't know, the equivalent of strip mining, but I'm going to milk it for all it's worth. Farm it to get the max out of it. And if the field comes back to be worthless, I don't care because it's not my field anyway. So maybe he's going to ruin it. That could be even worse. It could be we even give him an entire, it sounds like at this point we're saying he's going to get all the profits back. So I'm going to work on it for years, and he's going to come back and say it's my field, so I should get the money from it. So I'm not going to have anything to show for it. Shmuel Amar Maridim, Rishur says we do send him in. Kim Amar, since we'll see later on, Shaimin and Lehu Ka'aris, we evaluate him like a sharecropper. which means that the relative who's taking the caretaker of the field is treated like a sharecropper, and if the owner comes back, and the owner shows up after however long, you look back at all those years that the relative was there and give him a profit as if he were a hired sharecropper, half, a third, or a quarter of the profit, depending on the custom in that place. He's going to get a significant amount of money for. He's going to keep a significant amount of money for it. So even though he doesn't get to keep everything, the fact that he's making a good living off this field, that that's going to encourage him to invest in it. Encourage him to work it well, invest in it, make sure he's going to get that he's going to do it right. Therefore, we don't need to worry he's going to damage the owner's property. Mesa challenges. Rabbi Yehudah says, from the fact that the verse says, this is talking about someone who treats poor people not so well. My anger will flare up, and I'll kill you, kill the creditors. From the fact that it says I'm going to kill you, I already know the next line of the verse, which says that your wives will be widows. But your sons will be orphans. So why does it have to say, why does the verse have to say, not only will I kill you, but your wife will be a widow and your sons will be orphans? Well, that's redundant. His servant's dead. Of course his wife is a widow and his sons are orphans. So what does it mean? Malam teaches that your wife will try to get remarried, and basically will not let them because there's not sufficient evidence that the husband's dead. The husband's going to be dead, but there's not going to be proper proof, and the wife will not be allowed to remarry. She's going to be stuck the rest of her life in limbo because there won't be proof. And the sons, sons won't want to take over the father's property, but basically won't let them take over the property because, again, there's not evidence the father is dead. We're not going to let the sons get into their inheritance because maybe the father's still alive, even though he's actually dead. So we don't know he's dead. The sons will not even inherit. So it's a double whammy. Not only will you be dead, but your legacy is going to be in shambles because of the lack of proof. But we see from here, it says the sons will want to go into the property and we won't let them.
Lamed Ches.
Lamed Ches, yeah, near the bottom. About
B.
Lamed Ches B and B3.
Gotcha.
We're on 38B.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So you see from here that we don't let the relatives in, because if we let the relatives in, then we're not so worried about the sons getting into the property. It says your sons will not be able to take over the property. If you let a relative take over the property, you let the sons take over it, then this curse is not possible. So Amar Rav said, it says, no, to let them in to sell. Meaning, yeah, we'll let the son in to do work on the property. We're not going to let him take over and sell. We'll only let him work it and take profit out of it, but not to sell.
So we're on 38B, are we, Rabbi?
Yes.
What line? The first word in the line we're on.
Manichin.
Okay.
About halfway down where it gets wide.
Okay, Manichin Otan?
Yep.
Okay, got it.
So we're up to middle of the line. Hava Uvda, it happened in Aradai, in the city of Aradai. Pashta Rav Sheshes Mihamas Nisan. He brought a proof from this Mishnah that says his sons will want to go into the property, and when we let them, we see that we do not let the relative. Amalei Rav Amram. Rav Amram says to him, Dilma Levid V'lim Chotanan. Maybe it says that you should let, maybe what the Mishnah says, we don't let the sons in, it means they won't be able to go in and sell, like we just said. We said, how do you know it means you can't let them in at all? Maybe the Mishnah means you can't let them in to sell. Amalei says to him back, this famous line in Gemara, one of the well-known line about Gemara. It says, Amalei said to him, Dilma Pumbedisa, maybe you're from Pumbedisa, the Milan Pila Bakupa Demachta, that you put an elephant through the hole of a needle. It's the eye of a needle.
That.
Right. And the next word in my Gemara is scratched out. So if someone could tell me the next word, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
After the word machta, it says the word, an elephant in the eye of a needle.
Vaha Domia?
Vaha, there we go. Vaha, and because from here we see, Dun Hashem Almanos. It's like the case is like the wives. Just like the wives can't get, we don't let them get married even a little bit. When it comes to the sons, Kitani, taught the sons, Mahasa, when it comes to the wife, Klal Lo, the wife can't get married at all. Avhachanami, also when it comes to the sons in taking the inheritance, Klal Lo, they cannot take the inheritance at all. So the fact that it says the wives can't get married and the sons won't get the inheritance Just the wives can't get maybe married at all, the sons can't get the inheritance at all. We don't even let them in. It's not just saying that they can't sell it. It must be saying that they can't even take possession of it. And the Gemara says, "Morin karov l'nixei shavoi tanahi." That this whole discussion we've been having is actually a machlokas tanaim. So it's not, even though the Amarim are arguing, in previous generations, there's already debate about it. Tani has a brisa that says, "Hayor l'nixei shavoi." Someone goes down into the property of someone who is captured. Ein motzino somiyadu. We do not take him out of it. Lo oda. Not only that, filu shama shemamashashinu bain. Even if we hear that this relative who's been missing in action is on his way back alive and well, the kadam atalash, and he goes quick and he harvests the property, va'achal, and ate the produce. He's quick and benefits, meaning he doesn't have to pay anything back. So he hurries up and harvests the crop. And the relative comes back and says, "Look, I'm alive. Give me my property. Give me all the profits of my property for those years." He gets to keep the crop that he harvested quickly, even if he harvested it after the relative. He heard the relative is coming back. So you see that you can go into the property. The Elohim Nixei Shavim. What is the case of Nixei Shavim? The property of someone has been captured. His father, his brother, or anyone who is his inheritor. I don't know what the word is. The person who leaves him.
Heir?
No, heir is the opposite.
Right.
The opposite. Whatever, you know what I mean. Whatever the word is, I don't know what the word is, but the opposite of an heir. The one who leaves him the property. Not exactly benefactor either. Whatever the word is, maybe someone will come up with it later. I think last time I learned this Gemara, I couldn't remember the word either. Or couldn't come up with the word. Anyway, so his relative went to a foreign country. We heard about them, they died. So that's the case. We go in and you can take the property, and even if he comes back, he gets to take then you get to keep the profits. That's case number one. Case two, the tushim, someone who goes into abandoned property. We kick him out of it. And what is it called, abandoned property? His father, his brother, one of his relatives who passes on property to him, traveled to a foreign country. We did not hear about them that they died. They didn't leave any instruction what to do with their property. They could have done that. We have no evidence that they have passed away. We just know they're far out of town, and the field's just sitting empty. So if you try to take over, we kick you out. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, "Shemati, I heard that the abandoned property is like the captured property. So I see over there we let you in, so too here we let you in." Now, third case, retushim. Retushim is another word for abandoned. Someone goes into a different word for abandoned property. Well, Gemara's later going to ask why we have two different words for abandoned, but they're different cases even. It's really why does one mean one? Motzinos miyado, we take him out. Evan agrees to that. Even Rabbi Shimon Gamliel agrees you take him out. But Elohim nixei retushim, and what's called retushim property? Shahaya aviv achiv echad min hamorishin. His father, his brother, or one of the relatives who passed on property to him. They were in town. And we don't know what happened. They just disappeared locally. They didn't go on any trip. They're here, but they're just not showing up. We don't know where they are, but they're here in town somewhere. So the field's sitting abandoned, but there's no reason to think they don't have the ability to take care of it. They're being negligent and just letting their field be empty. And we like to tell them we can't find them. But as far as we know, they're in town, and there's no reason to think that, there's reason to think that had they wanted someone to help them, they would have asked someone to help them. They're here, they're local, that for sure. We don't let someone take over. They could show up any minute and complain about it. So we just leave it empty in that case. Now anyone asks, why do we call the previous one, what's different about the previous one, the Karlu Natushim? We call them Nitushim with a nun. And what about this third case, the Karlu Nebritushim? In a foreign country, we call it Nitushim. When he's local, we call it Ritushim. What's the difference? So we're going to use it from verses. The Tushim, the word in the Tushim, the Balkora, that implies against as well. Where do we see this word Tushim used? The Shemitah year, the sabbatical year, you should let it slip and abandon it. That's a ficta de malka. It's a gzera, it's a decree from Hashem that you have to leave it empty. You're forced against your will to abandon it. It's abandoned because of a decree. So you're forced. So that's why we call the case where he's kidnapped, or he's in a foreign country, he's not able to come back. That's called natushim because it's against his will. It's not involuntary, but he's abandoning it. He's forced to abandon it. He's stuck, whatever reason he's stuck, he can't come back and take care of it. Ratushim, but the word of Ratushim and Dimidaitin applies with their own knowledge, their own choice. The Pasuk says, Rutasha, that the mother with the sons have abandoned it. So, this is talking about the time of the previous one is the time of Shemitah. This is talking about when there's enemies attack and everyone flees, they're running away, and so they chose to run away. And therefore, since they chose to abandon their property to save their lives, that's the language retushim. The choice involved. So when they're local and just happen to not take the property, we call that retushim. When they're in a foreign country and they're not taking care of the property, that's called nitushim. Just each one based on the verse, but the words themselves are pretty much synonymous. Now the Gemara says, Tanit says in the Brisa, "V'kulam shamalam ka'aris." All of them evaluate like a sharecropper. There's a Brisa that says about this Brisa. It says we treat them all like a sharecropper. Ahaya. Now, which one of these cases is like a sharecropper? Ilaim ashvuyin. If you say the first case is shvuyin, when he's in a foreign country, you heard that he's dead. Hash. There it says zeriz v'niskar. If he hurries up and harvests, he gets to take 100%. Hava. He was. So he can't. My ashkach, boy. What he finds, we need to ask what's already on property, what's in the property already. They should get as a sharecropper. We need to discuss. He gets so much more than that. So why would you come and say that he's like a sharecropper? Can't be. Retushin, whatever Retushin, the middle case where he's in a foreign country and abandoned it. So it's a third case. In the third case, well, it says if you take it out of his hands, he doesn't get anything. We don't let him stay in it at all. So it can't be the third case. I just took my finger off. Okay. It must be on the Tushim. It must be the middle case on Tushim abandoned. It says Laman according to who? If you say L'Rabbanan, if you say according to the rabbis, but they said even the middle case, Motziah no Zamiyad, we kick him out of it. Rabban Shimon Megamliel, but if you say like Rabban Shimon Megamliel, Ha'amar, he said, Shemati Shanatushim Kishvuyim, that the middle case, like the first case, that you let them stay in and get the profits. So where can you say we treat him like a sharecropper? The first case, he gets 100% of the profits. Third case, he's not allowed to be in at all. Second case, either is not allowed to be in, he should 100%. Where do we treat him like a sharecropper? So where it says, when Shimon Gamliel said it's like the second case is like the first case, is kishvuim v'lo kishvuim, is v'lo shuyim. He's like the first case, but not the same as the first case. Kishvuim is like the first case in the sense that ein motziah samiyanu, we do not kick him out if we let him stay. V'lo shuyim, it's not like the first case of shuyim that is captured. Over there we say zariz v'niska. If he hurries up, he's benefits. He's to keep 100% of the profits. But in our case, when the middle case where he's in a foreign country and we don't know what happened to him. Then we treat him like a sharecropper. He gets a percentage of the profits, but not all of it. And now we see, but once we have this explanation, we see that Rabban Shimon Megamliel says we let the relative come in the middle case when he's in a foreign country. We don't know what happened to him. We let the relative in and we treat him like a sharecropper. And the Tanakh is arguing, says we do not let him in at all. You see, there's a machlokas Tanaim. Whether you say whether we let a relative in to take over the field when the person is out of town.
If he gets only part of the profit in the one case, what happens to the rest of it?
So he has to give if the owner shows up, we give him the rest. If the owner never shows up, he gets to keep everything. Okay. But if the owner shows up, then we say all these years we're going to treat you like a sharecropper, or at least the first year, at least for the first year. The second year when you did the work, maybe you get more. But sure, in the first year we get like a sharecropper. Yes.
Okay. Rabbi, I apologize. I'm addled on a number of fronts. I'm only just starting my coffee, and obviously I got the class late. You may have already dealt with this question, or maybe out of order completely. I assume we're dealing about a situation where someone is declared dead.
Not declared dead. He's been rumored. Rumored to be dead. We're
trying to figure out what to do with his property.
Right.
And has someone just already moved in on their own initiative put the move on his property, or is this just generally sanctioned by the Kehillah, person moving in on this property?
This particular Bryce we're talking about talks about the relative moving in on their own.
This is a relative.
It's a relative.
It's an inheritance issue here,
right,
I guess.
Right. It's a person who stands to inherit him. So since the person who stands to inherit him is taking the property, we're going to let them in. In fact, earlier we said we even encourage them to go in. There's property sitting here; it's just a waste of money. So let a relative. Rav Shmuel says you let a relative in.
This is our answer to a probate question, I guess. guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, my other question then, which would be out of order for another time, I guess, is what happens if someone is declared dead and their property, for some reason, let's say, goes to a non-relative, and he shows up alive? On the one hand, it's hard property like land, or on the other hand, it's actual physical items. Then how you deal with that when the guy that you declared dead shows up? But that's a question for another day, I guess.
Yeah. So if there's actual proof that he's dead, then we let the relative in. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how that would be treated. Okay, so anyway, we're back to the Gemara. We're about 12 or so lines down, Lamed Tes, Lamed Aleph. We're asking, how is this different? It says in the Mishnah, if someone spends money on his wife's property, Harvey spent a lot of money, made a major investment, and only made a little bit of profit. Kima made a small amount of investment, he got a lot of return on his investment. Whatever he spent, whatever he ate. When the marriage ends, he gives her the property back as is. He keeps all the profit he had. And there's no reckoning of how much he spent and how much he ate. We don't do any calculation. Whatever he ate, whatever he spent, he spent. Whether he made a profit, whether he did not make a profit, that's it. Marriage is over. Return everything. And says, so how is that different here? Here we say we get to keep a percentage of it no matter what. How is it similar? And says that's not such a good question. Halo Damia, the case that you're describing is not similar to our case. Our case is more similar to Elaha. Our case is more similar to the following. What if someone marries a child, particularly a child who is an orphan? They marry a girl who is an orphan. So on a Torah level, you cannot marry a girl under the age of bas mitzvah, cannot get married without her father arranging the marriage. But the rabbi said we don't want a girl to be stuck until she's 12 and a half and not able to get married before 12 and a half. We wanted her to be able to be married. The rabbis established that her brothers and her mother can marry her off with her consent. Even before that marriage is rabbinic, and therefore we also create a back door that if she wants to get out of the marriage, she can just say, "I don't want this marriage anymore," and walk out. So now we have a situation where she's married, and let's say her father is dead. She has let's say she has no brothers, so she's there. She inherits her father's property. So we have this husband is now married to this girl. Situation where he could really take advantage of this situation. He's married to a girl. And not only is he married to her, but she could walk out any second. She could single-handedly end the marriage. So he has this property in front of him. He's allowed to use it, and he knows, tomorrow she may leave him, and he doesn't lose anything. Why should he invest in this property? He's gonna milk this property for all it's worth and not invest in it because he could theoretically spend a lot of money on it and then get nothing out of it. So what do we do? If he invests money in the property, a kamotzel nixon acher is like investing in someone else that he gets a return, that he's going to get a share of the profits no matter what. Because since he's not comfortable with the situation, he knows that she could walk out on him any minute now. Therefore, we say whatever happens, you're going to get a share as a sharecropper. Unlike when you're fully married, and the assumption is the marriage is going to last, and if the marriage ends, you just return the property as is. When you're married to a child, we're going to give you profits as a sharecropper, even if she walks out right now. Before you've had a chance to harvest anything, if the property went up in value during your time, you're going to get a share of that profit. Therefore, you're not going to ruin the property. So it says, Dami Almas, we see came to Los since he does not rely on the fact he's going to get to keep this property. We establish the rabbis, he gets a share of the profits, so that he doesn't ruin it. So in our case, when he's kidnapped, we establish for the rabbis that he should get a share of the profits, that he does not ruin them. Unlike the case of a wife, where he's assuming that he's going to have it, so he relies on it and he's going to keep it. This is more like the case of a child, that he doesn't rely that he's going to get to keep it. Therefore, we establish that he should get a share of the profits, so that he'll treat it properly, he'll invest in it, he won't ruin it. And it says, what we said before, V'kulan, all of them shaman the aris. We treat all of them like a sharecropper. We establish it's not all of them, it's only one of the three cases we treat like a sharecropper. So why does it say we treat all of them like a sharecropper? Kulan, this way in mind, when it says the word V'kulan, all of them, what does it come to add on? It must be some other case, because if it's only this one case, we can't say they all just trade, we treat them like a sharecropper. And we say all of them, there must be some other case we also treat like a sharecropper. It says, L'svuye, Chadam Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel. To add on the case of Rav Nachman's case of Shmuel, Shavui shenishba, that someone was kidnapped, morin and karv l'nechasav. If someone is kidnapped, we send a relative into the property. Yatzal adas, he left on purpose. Ein morin and karv l'nechasav. We do not send the relative into the property. Rav Nachman Didei Rav Nachman himself said, "Boreach, someone runs away. He's like someone who's kidnapped. So whether he's just running away or he's kidnapped, the same thing. We send a relative in. When it says Boreach machmas mai, what is he running away from? What's the reason he's running away? If he's wanting right to avoid paying taxes, he knows there's a stiff tax penalty coming. He can't afford it, so he runs away. If he's not around, they won't be able to collect taxes from him. That's called leaving on purpose. If he wants someone to take over his field, he could have told them there's not such a urgency to leave. And when he realizes he can't pay taxes, he can make plans ahead of time. Everyone knows when April 15th is, which by the way is soon. Hope everyone did their taxes. I haven't finished mine yet. That's tonight hopefully is tax night.
Go to an extension.
I can go. I'm not going to owe any money, so I'm not worried about late penalties. So if I miss it, I can get extension, and I'm not so worried. But hopefully. Yeah. Anyway, so you know when it's coming, and you can run away. That's on. He should have left instructions what to do with his property. In fact, he didn't. We should leave it. That's leaving on purpose. Rather, Borech Machnos Mardin. He killed a person. The Persians were particularly strict on murder. Even killing someone in self-defense was considered murder, and someone could be executed for that. So let's say this person killed someone in self-defense, but now he has to run. Now he's running away. He's worried if the police catch him, they're going to execute him. So we're not talking about we're not just talking about a murderer on purpose. We don't have such compassion for him. Let's say he killed in self-defense, but the government doesn't care. They're going to try to execute him. So he ran away. He had to run away quickly. Doesn't have time to leave instructions behind. So in that case, we'll send a relative in to work the property, and when he comes back, hopefully he can get things straightened out. And eventually he'll come back. He'll get a share of the profits back. Get the land guy back. Get the share of profits at least. So that's the case that we add on to say that someone who's kidnapped, we let the relative in. So we have, if we heard that he's dead, we let a relative in. If he's been kidnapped, we know that he's been kidnapped, we let a relative in. And also if he ran away because of murder charges, then we let a relative in. In all those cases, we treat him well. So if he's dead, if we heard that he's dead, then the person is Zari's Benischar, that he gets if he harvested ahead of time, he gets to keep 100%. With other cases, that's where we say that we treat him like a sharecropper.
Running away doesn't have to just be murder. It could be the tax thing.
Well, running away for taxes, he should have left instructions. If he wanted someone to take over his field, he would have left instructions behind. The fact he didn't leave any instructions means he'd rather his field sit fallow. But the fact he ran away from murder charges, we don't assume that he would have left someone behind. He's too busy. It's too big a hurry. He may have wanted to leave someone behind, just he get a chance because he just had to get out of there. So Amar Rabb Yehudah Amar Shmuel. Yehudah says in the name of Shmuel, Shavui shenishba, if the relative the person was kidnapped and he Kamma liktzor, he left standing grain to harvest. Anavim livtzor, you left grapes to harvest. Different word for harvest, grapes. Tamarim ligdor and dates to another word for harvest. Seis and limzok, another word for harvest. Each species has a unique word for harvesting that species. It's a different action. It's like you say reaping and harvesting. You reap grain, you don't reap grapes. Mm-hmm. So in Hebrew, there's a unique word for harvesting each kind of produce. Mm-hmm. So it's just in English, you have some specific verbs.
You harvest them at different dates too.
Different dates, different methods. Like you don't pick wheat. I can't imagine someone trying to pick wheat. That would be pretty tedious.
Just you wanted a few kernels.
Right. I was saying harvest a whole field by picking. No, as opposed to trying to take a sickle to harvest grapes. You're not going to have grapes next year if you do that. So it's definitely a different action. I don't know the difference between grapes and olives and dates so much, but they're also there. They're definitely different. Dates grow much higher than grapes, and olives go somewhere in between. So, fine. So all these things they just left them behind. Based in Jordan, the basin goes down into his property. We put in a apotropis, a administrator. Thank you. The coats or boats, if we go to Mas, they can harvest, and harvest. And afterwards, more than cover the we send in a relative to take over. As to looking at apotropis, why don't we send an administrator permanently? Why let a relative in? Have basin find someone who doesn't get any profit, hold on to everything for him. Why do we do that? The Gemara says that potripos the diknani lo makminin. To set an potripos for literally diknani literally means bearded ones, so it means adults. We don't establish an administrator. Beis Din does not establish an administrator for adults. The reason is when there's a child who needs help, child needs assistance, then we'll say, okay, someone take over. It's a mitzvah to help out the child. That's where we'll say we'll send someone into the property to take over on behalf of the child. The adult who's kidnapped, people will say he's an adult. Why should we take over for him? So if it's short term, okay, just this one harvest, do him a little favor, fine, do him a favor, we'll harvest for him. Mm-hmm. But long term, then I want you to take over this person's property and not get any profit for it. You're not going to find people interested in doing that. The person is an adult, like whatever, let him deal with it himself. Why should I help him forever? So that's what we say. Send a relative will get a share of the profits. That way, that's the way to find something that'll be better than trying to find an agent, not be able to find an agent in Beis Din. Okay, now Omer Rav Huna says in Moridin Katan Lexei Shavoy. That's what we say. You send a relative, and we don't send in under bar mitzvah child. We don't send someone in who's not yet bar mitzvah. We don't send him in. Below karav next to katan, and if the child is abandoned, and want to send the property into a child, well, we do not send a relative in. The reason is the relative could claim it's actually my inheritance. It's not the child, it's mine. They say, well, this was his father. Yeah, I'm his brother. I inherited this. It's my share. The katan doesn't know enough to protest. Then this relative will get away with stealing the property from the child. Therefore, even as an agent of Beis Din, we do not let a relative be a caretaker for the child's property. Below karav machmas karav, and we don't send a relative next to katan. So example is his half brother's half brother on the other side. So even that we don't do, because you'll think that the property we'll think it came from the other side from his brother. Again, the child might get cheated out of his property. So you don't sell a relative, you only sell a relative of a relative. So now we can explain. We don't sell a relative into the property of someone who's been kidnapped. It's not a child. Dilma, Mavsin, maybe he's going to ruin them. He's a child, he's not responsible, he might ruin them. But carver machmas carver the next katan. What does it mean when we say we don't sell a relative of a relative of the property of a child? His brother on his mother's side. The brother on his father's side is brother from his mother's side. So the brother from his father's side and shares inheritance with him. So we don't send the brother in, and we don't even send the brother's half brother from the mother's side because he may come to steal property. Velo car of the next cut. Don't sell a relative in to the property of a child. Since the child is not going to protest and saying my brother is stealing my property, he's not going to complain or doesn't know enough to complain. He's going to come and take a chazaka. It's a basic principle that if you take over a field for 3 years and been running it for 3 years, then you're believed to say, if someone says, what are you doing in my field? Say, you sold it to me. And it's been 3 years already. I didn't keep track of my paperwork longer than 3 years. I had a document, I lost it. The 3 years already, you didn't say a word, so I thought you'd never protest, so I didn't keep track of my documentation. So since it's possible you go 3 years without, if you protest during the time and say, this guy's stealing my field, and sooner or later I'm going to take him to Beis Din and get my field back. So then he knows he has to keep track of his star. The child doesn't know to protest. Since the child doesn't know to protest after 3 years have gone by, then the relative is going to be able to claim, I have the field. That's why we don't let a relative take over in the first place, so that he doesn't come to claim it's his. And not only that, the relative can claim, I'm the one who inherited it. It was never the child in the first place. The child doesn't make any protest. The fact the relative's been there for 3 years, we'll say, okay, it's proof that it was never the child in the first place. So Amar Rava says, Shema Mina, from this we see, Rav Huna, from the statement of Rav Huna, Ein Maksik V'Nixnei Katan, and no one can ever make a chazak on a child. So with a relative, we're worried the relative is going to claim it was mine all along. But when it comes to someone else, if Beis Din would put someone else in the field, then we're not worried this other person is going to claim it's theirs. Since there's a basic principle, you cannot make a chazak, you cannot take this 3-year possession thing against a child.
Probably on 39b now.
We're about to be.
Okay,
We just read the last word. I'm explaining the last word,
okay.
and then I'm about to turn the page. So if someone takes possession of a child and claims they bought it, we say too bad. You have to bring proof because we don't believe you, because since the child doesn't know to protest, the fact that he has a protest isn't proof that it's yours. You should have kept your documentation. But even if you grew up and you had the field for 3 years past the time of bar mitzvah, still we don't let you say you had it for 3 years, because the child might not realize what's happening. He may never have known that the field was his field, and definitely didn't know how to protest. And when it says velo amran, this we say we don't tell a relative in el ba'achid abba, the brother on the father's side. Brother on the father's side could be co-inheritors. But the brother and mother's side does not inherit the father, less land, but it's not a problem to let the brother and mother's side into the property. He's not going to be able to claim that I inherited it. The brother and father's side also lo amra nami alam, and we also don't say they can't go in. Ela baras, it's only by fields, by land. While the bati comes to houses, less than, but it's not a problem because the neighbors are going to know what happened. The fact that the fields in the middle of nowhere, people might not realize what's happening. Why this brother's here instead of that brother? When it comes to houses, the neighbors are going to know exactly what happened. That the brother's the caretaker, not the owner.
What the maternal brother and the paternal brother? What?
So paternal brothers share inheritance.
Okay.
Maternal brothers don't. So to let the paternal brother in, that we don't want to do because he's going to claim this is part of my inheritance. It came from our father and it's mine. It's my share. The mother's brother, the maternal brother, he can't claim such a thing because it came from the father. He can't claim it was his. And then when it comes to a field, people don't know. It comes to house, the neighbors know the story, why he's there. So we're not worried that the brother's going to claim it's his inheritance. When it comes to fields, we didn't say Ella, but the law of it, if you do not do a documentation of the division of it, but if they did a documentation of the division of the inheritance, there's a voice, there's publicity about it. And therefore, we're not worried that the brother's going to take over. And when it says, none of that we just said is true. Lo shana achid it makes a difference the father from the brother from the father's side. Lo shana achid ima, no difference whether it's a maternal brother. Lo shana arsa makes no difference with its land. Lo shana bati makes no difference with houses. Lo shana avid itan makes no difference whether they did a document of division. Lo shana lo avid itan, it does not make a difference whether they did a document of division or did not. Lo machtinen, they do not send a relative in to the property of a child. And we're a minute early, but the next Gemara, this is a really good place to stop. Next Gemara is quite involved. Maybe I'll tell you the case, and then I'll leave Rabbi Ramer. No, I'll be here tomorrow, so everyone stand up down. So I'll take over tomorrow. Take over. I'll tell you the case and to make it a little easy to get into it tomorrow. Basically, we have a woman, and her woman has 3 daughters, and one of the daughters passed away and left a son, and the woman and one of the other daughters have been kidnapped in a foreign country. And the question is what to do with the property. Because we have 3 possibilities. Either the grandmother's alive, in which case the property belongs to her, and we can't let a child take over the property of someone who's out of town. We can't let the child take over. Or the grandmother's dead, and then maybe half the property belongs to a child. You're not allowed to let a relative take over the property of a child. So you can't let his aunt be take on the property because the grandmother will be dead, and we can't let the take over for the child. And then there's also a question, what about the daughter? First you have to deal with the grandmother before you deal with the daughter. The question is, what do? We can't let the aunt take over. We can't let the child take over it. What are you supposed to do with this property? So that's a discussion for tomorrow. Hold it in suspense. I guess, God willing, tomorrow, 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, we will resume.
6 o'clock.